Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Marian Lopez. Pronouns are she and her, and I work at the Kenneth Young Center. This is the first of a series that we're doing, a scoop of advice for parents and their teens. And I'm going to introduce our facilitator for this evening, Rosa Arvizu. She is our project lead for one of our underage drinking, our underage drinking prevention grant. And she's been working in the community for quite a while, and she is a local resident of Hoffman Estates and has, children. So she's a very good person in terms of working with parents and knowing exactly what's going on at this age. So take it away, Rosa. And if there's anything else you want to say at this point, I will be looking at the chat section throughout the evening. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in there. I think Rosa's going to be going through a little bit how to work the controls. But yeah, feel free to, it's a small group. So if you have any questions as we go, feel free to bring them up. Any comments or feedback, let us know. Thank you.
Thank you, Marian. And I do see some new people join the webinar as well. If you want to add your names to the chat box and just the town that you're from, we like to see where everyone's from. And obviously, we're going to be talking about a lot of the state data. And then I'm also available to help with any other questions. Even if you are out of state, please share your questions at the end of the webinar. Any statements expressed in this presentation are just not necessarily reflecting the views of our funders. This is our disclaimer in general. We love our funders, Department of Human Services, and also SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. And again, just general disclaimer, you will be having a copy of the webinar presentation. So any notes or anything that you might miss throughout the webinar, you will be getting a copy. Just a few things to review. On the bottom of your screen, you should be seeing these settings. To check your speaker settings, you can click on the audio settings. You can also use the chat box, which I noticed a lot of you have already been using. And then Q&A, I don't think we're going to be using that too much. I'd rather have the chat box available for everybody. And also, if you need to leave the meeting, please feel free to do so. Again, we will be recording this webinar. So if you need to leave early, no problem. You'll be receiving a copy afterwards. So let's go ahead and practice a little bit of the chat box. I know that the whole theme of this presentation was a scoop of advice. I wanted to make this webinar a little bit different compared to other webinars you can check out online now. There's tons of them. But I also wanted to do something for local businesses, especially Latino businesses here in our community. And so if you registered online and you registered with time, you should have received a coupon. If you didn't, please email me and I can send you a copy of it. I hope you all got your ice cream, whether it's today or tomorrow. And let's just practice and put your favorite ice cream flavor on the chat box. I see Oreo and chocolate. That's a good one. Cookie dough. Ooh. Vanilla. Yummy. Anyone have any different kind? There's so many ice cream flavors sometimes that it's like now they have avocado, they have pistachio, green tea, there you go. Stephanie, dark chocolate, coffee, that's a good one too. Guayaba, that's very good. Okay, so it looks like everybody has a way of putting things into the chat box. I'm glad it's working out, and with all these flavors, it's just making me a little hungry. So we'll move on from there. Again, like I mentioned, my name is Rosa. I went to the University of Utah and studied health promotion and education a few years back. And I've been doing underage drinking prevention with Kenneth Young Center for the last almost 2 years. And I also have a 13-year-old and I have a 1-year-old at home. And actually, my 13-year-old is here with me, so I'll just have her introduce herself real quick.
Hi, I'm Stephanie, and I'm an 8th grader at Jane Addams Junior High. My favorite ice cream flavor would probably be mango. Pretty good one.
Thank you. All right. A little bit of our organization at Kenneth Young Center. We have therapy services and family counseling for people of all ages. We also have older adult services, such as adult protective services, home delivery meals for them. And then also our team, which focuses on prevention services, also known as the Community Collaboration Team. We currently have substance use prevention, and we also have other topics with youth and young adults, such as youth experiencing homelessness, an LGBTQ drop-in center, and other topics as well. So if you ever are wondering what we do or what kind of services, you can always visit our website at kennethyoung.org, or you can call us well on the main line. A copy of curriculum that is evidence-based, meaning that this has been already implemented in the community and it has shown to work. It is called Too Good for Drugs. And I wanted to share this because I feel like sometimes we don't know what is going on 100% in our community just because there's a lot going on. And this program has been shown to be effective. It goes over goal settings, responsible decision-making, and among other, how to handle emotions, which is a big thing in prevention for substances. So if you do have any questions about curriculums for your school and you want to advocate for them, please visit toogoodprograms.com, or you can email one of our colleagues, Michelle B. at kennethyoung.org. Moving on with the whole presentation, and the main topic of today will be alcohol prevention. Our learning objectives will be to understand the facts of underage drinking, identify the effects of alcohol in the brain. The main focus as well will be to practice and start these conversations with your kids. I know that the whole presentation will focus on alcohol, but the steps will be they're flexible to talk about anything, really any sensitive topics with your kids. So I really hope that you can find this presentation helpful. You can start the conversation today about alcohol, but you can also use these steps in the future for other topics as well. Okay, so first we're going to start with the very basic. You might ask yourself, what do you mean by alcohol? This includes beer from bottles or cans. It also includes liquor, wine, spirits. If you are asking yourself, what's the most common alcohol drink among teens? Well, among local teens here in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, among 8th graders, wine was the most popular one. And this is according to a survey that I will be sharing a little bit more about it later on. And then for 10th and 12th graders, it was liquor. So vodka, for example, it was the most common alcohol among those teens. All right, so let's get you guys moving with a few polls to learn about the basic facts of alcohol. So out of all substances, including marijuana, vaping, and alcohol, which substances were the most used by the teens? What was the number one substance? Things have changed a lot, especially this year and since 2018. So make your best guess on the chat box. What is the most common substance used by the teens? Okay, so I see a few vaping answers. So if you answered alcohol, though, you got it right. Let's look at data to cover why that was. So again, this is local data. Our program is really focused on creating programs to cover what is happening right now in our communities. And even though vaping is on the rise and it is a substance that keeps increasing, alcohol is still the most substance used by teens. So on the graph there, without making things too complicated, alcohol among 8th, 10th, and 12th grade was the most used substance. And that's in 2018 and 2020 as well. Sometimes when I'm in the community, a lot of parents do say, well, what about marijuana and vaping? We don't want to hear about alcohol. But reality is that a lot of families don't realize that that's still a substance, and you can prevent it just like you can prevent all the other substances. If you are from out of state, you can always look for local data in your community. National data also shows that alcohol is the most used substance. But again, every community, every little pocket might be different. But here, alcohol. A little bit about the Illinois Youth Survey. It's a self-reported survey administered in schools in Illinois. And they do it every 2 years. They did it in 2018, and this year they were going to do it in March. About less than half of the schools were able to administer due to COVID. So that's why I'm showing 2018 data. In 2018, a lot more schools took the survey, so the data is a little bit more accurate. And in 2020, although there was still schools, you're talking about less surveys that were taken as well. It is an optional survey. It's designed to gather information from youth about overall health and social indicators, so substance use, violence and bullying, perceptions of school, depression, nutrition, and fitness. Once we have the information, once the schools have the information, it really helps them plan for the following years for effective prevention strategies. And as a coalition, we use that data as well. We work with the schools to help them do something about the substances and the concerns that are as a result of a survey. So, for example, doing this webinar for parents, because again, alcohol is still number one. And again, if you need to come back to that chart, or if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box and I can come back to it at the end of the presentation. You probably have heard that alcohol is bad for the brain, but what does that really mean? Our brain is the center of our control for our body, right? It processes our senses, what we see, what we smell, what we hear, taste, and it also controls our involuntary actions, such as our heartbeat, our breathing. Alcohol can hit the developing brain stronger and with greater effects than in adults. Why is that? Because again, the brain is still developing. So right now, we're showing a little bit of a glance of what alcohol does to the teenage brain. Sometimes, these things can go on and on with how neurons work in our brain and how the signals go. I really encourage you guys to jump on some resources that I will be mentioning at the end of the presentation. I didn't want this to be the main focus, but it is important to cover because a lot of the time we're only said that alcohol is bad for our brain, but we don't really study it, right? We don't really have the facts behind it. So just a glance behind, what it does to our brain. We know that it slows down brain function. It loses coordination. It impairs movement and decision making. It affects the memory, affects the ability to perceive and react to danger, depressed feelings and emotions, or angriness, which is really hard in a developing brain already. And in long term, dependency and addiction. So there's a statistic that was shown that said if teenagers try alcohol before the age of 15, the chances of developing alcohol dependence increases to 4 times more likely. So if again, just to reword that, if I'm 14 and I try alcohol, and then my chances of having a dependency and an addiction problem later on increases really high, 4 times more likely. So this is why I love prevention, because we can actually prevent that from happening. All right, next question. What do you guys think is the most common way for teens to access alcohol? So A, from a friend, stranger, or older sibling. B, from parents with permission. C, from the store. Or D, store took without permission. I see some A's, from a friend, stranger, or older sibling. B, from parents with permission. Well, if you answered A, from a friend, stranger, or older sibling, you got it right. And again, we'll be looking at data to back that up. Local data shows that any social source is the highest here among most of the grades, especially 10th and 12th. So any social source excludes parents. It includes a friend gave it to me. I got it at a party. I gave a stranger money to buy it for me. My older brother or sister gave it to me. Or an adult other than my parents with their permission. So again, if you have questions about this, we'll be doing a Q&A at the end, but is anybody surprised about social sources being the number one among teens? What about number 2? Did you guys notice as well that parents are the number 2 sources of alcohol as well? And does that surprise you? I see some comments. So culturally, some parents tend to provide alcohol. I'm not surprised. Yeah, so a lot of the time what I hear from parents is that I'd rather give my teen alcohol when they do provide it. I'd rather do alcohol than another substance. For example, I'd rather give alcohol than marijuana, but they don't see alcohol as a substance. And most of the time, they just need a little bit more information about how alcohol can be bad for the brain. Again, most of the time we hear that alcohol is bad for the brain, but we don't really get to learn in what ways. And once I share with them that if a teen were to try alcohol before they're 15, they're more likely to build the dependency and addiction. And that's not something that a lot of parents want to hear or a lot of parents want to plan for. We obviously want the best for our kids, and that's not what we want. So it's just a matter of kind of stepping back and learning a little bit more about how alcohol is actually a substance and why we have laws around it. All right, and I think this might be some of our last few questions. So going on to the laws and how they help us prevent alcohol among minors. What is the legal age to purchase and consume alcohol in our country? A, 18, B, 21, or C, 24. And if teens can have the main guess on this one and share it on the chat. Yep, you guys got it right. So B, 21. And next question. What are the consequences of any adult who provides alcohol to minors here in Illinois? A, go to jail, B, a fine, or C, both? Yeah, so if you answered C, both, you are right. So again, the law that is around that is called the Illinois Social Host Law. It does, it is different in every state. I believe most states have something around it, but again, the law is broken down into different segments. So I would highly encourage for you to look up your state law. But for Illinois, um, again, overall, the law just holds parents and other adults accountable for giving youth or minors alcohol at the residence or other property that otherwise they control in a way. For Illinois, some of the potential fines they can range from 500 to 25,000. The fines really, it depends on the situation, and it also depends on the township that you're in. So if you have specific questions about your township, please email me and I can send you a copy of what it covers in your specific township. In terms of jail time, it can vary again from 1 day to up to 3 years. And also, again, it just depends on the different situation, whether it's considered a felony or a penalty. Again, it just depends. All right, so we learned about a few facts, and that's the first step to prevent underage drinking, is really to be informed so you can provide the facts and accurate sources for your teenagers, for friends, family members, and others. So now we're going to start with the actual conversation. So first, we're going to begin by asking and listening. Some of you might have your teens with you, some of you might not. So if you don't, you can just practice and pretend that you're having this conversation. So you can start asking one of the following questions. Either you ask, what do you think about underage drinking? What have you heard? What have you noticed? Or are the trends similar in your school to what we have learned today? I'll give you about a minute to ask and discuss that. Actually, it's just asking. Don't discuss yet. This will actually allow you to learn what your kids already know, and avoid correcting them in any way. Right now, it's just a time to ask and listen. Okay. If you guys need a little bit of time, let me know. Otherwise, we're going to move on to the next step. Sometimes the exchange on this first step might be short. Sometimes it's going to go a little bit deeper. You can do more than one question just to elaborate more on the conversation or to open up with your teen. But that's okay. Both things are okay as long as the first step is done. Okay, second step is to actually talk between both of you. We're going to do two strategies. The first one is practicing a scenario. So if your teen tells you that they're going on a party or they're going to hang out with friends, this is a great opportunity for you to create a scenario and discuss what they would do if they were to get offered alcohol. So for this occasion, I just wrote one down. I'll read it out loud. Sam arrives at a friend's house for their first dance party. Sam is really excited. They even learned a new dance move to impress on the dance floor. However, at the party, Sam gets nervous and suddenly loses the courage to dance. While hanging out with friends, Sam hears a rumor that someone brought alcohol to the party. Sam really doesn't want to drink because of sport tryouts the next morning. However, they figure a beer or two might help loosen up. After all, Sam has seen lots of movies or TikTok videos where people appear more carefree after drinking. It's no big deal. So take a minute to discuss what Sam should remind themselves before they actually take a drink. What do you guys think Sam should tell himself? Okay, so somebody shared their responses. Sam should say no and walk away, especially if someone hands them an open drink, because there might be drugs in there. Call parents and get out of the uncomfortable situation. And again, there's no right, wrong answers. The whole focus of this scenario is that Sam stops and thinks. And that's the first step in many of our prevention curriculums that we teach in the schools, is to help teens take a minute to actually stop and kind of talk to themselves about what are the reasons why they should stay away from substances. Okay, so part 2 of the story, Sam walks over to say hi to a group of friends. They all walk over to get an alcohol beverage and pressure Sam to grab one too. What are some ways that Sam can get out of the situation? So again, the focus will be an actual action. What do you guys think Sam should do? And feel free again to share your answer on the chat box. So Ileana gave an example of that one in the last situation where they immediately just took an action and said, well, just call the parents and get out of the uncomfortable situation, right? Walk away and go find a more responsible friend group. Yes. Yeah, so again, some actions and ways to say no. It's just coming up with some options while you're practicing these scenarios. You know, they can say, no thanks, I'm good. No, that's not cool. For a lot of the teens, these things are just very different, and it varies depending on how your teen is. So, you know, you can put an excuse like, I have to drive back home and wake up pretty early the next morning, or they just walk away from the situation when nobody's seeing. They can continue saying, I'll just get one later. Just depends on the pressure and what your teen thinks they can do at the time. Go to the bathroom is a very common one. Just say, oh, let me go to the bathroom and then I'll be right back. And then at that point, you know, they just go home. They don't think it's a safe environment. You can pretend someone's calling you. Oh, hold on, let me get this phone call and I'll be right back. So again, it just really varies, and with time, they'll feel comfortable actually saying something about that with their teen, with their peers. So the steps of this can just vary from teen to teen, but it is important for them to know what their options are and what ways or alternatives they have to get out of an uncomfortable situation. The second part of the talk is for parents and caregivers. Don't forget to set clear family rules or reinforce the rules with your teens every single year. So on the surveys that we take here that I mentioned in Illinois, a lot of the results show that the older the teen gets, the less perceived risk they see in these substances. So again, it's important for us parents, caregivers, mentors to remind them what the rules are and why there's actual laws around these substances. So reinforce your rules. Don't forget that every single year. Maybe make it part of, you know, starting back to school conversation. So yeah, that could be another part of the talk. So a quick recap with a K, what we learned today and how to open up about having open conversations. So first, we made sure we had a little bit of background information, and that's, you know, we learned some new facts. Then we asked a question to open up the conversation, and we asked and listened. And then at the end, we actually practice open conversations, so hands-on, more scenario, and maybe reviewing some family rules in the house. And parents, you're the #1 influence on whether your teen drinks or not. I'm pretty sure that when we were growing up, we could probably recall being in tricky situations and still hearing our moms or our dads or different people who were with us growing up, that if they were to show in front of us, we could hear their voice, right? Don't do it, or I'm so disappointed on you. And this is what it really means to talk to your teens, even though it might not be so obvious every single time you have these conversations. They're still listening and they're still hearing. So have these conversations, short but often. It doesn't have to be all in one conversation. That's actually pretty boring for teens to have a long conversation. So do short ones every here and there. And then lastly, I want to leave you with a few links to some resources and handouts. On our website, cpydcoalition.org/scoop of advice, we have some handouts available for you. We have social host information, and we also have a trifold on a summary of like creating these conversations with your teens. And again, if you need to come back to this webinar, you will also have access to that. There's also the samhsa.gov website and drugfree.org. Those are really good websites for you to get a little bit of background on underage drinking. And then asklistenlearn.org is also a great website for alcohol and the brain. I know we couldn't touch base on that for very long, but it's very interactive. It has even some games for teens. And so, yeah, that's a really great website. And then for parents who need an actual line, maybe talking to somebody about how to approach their teen or finding more resources, there is a helpline for free. It's the 1-855 drug free, and it's in Spanish and English as well. And they're trained experts on these situations, so please use those resources moving forward. And then also remember there's therapy for teens here at Kenneth Young Center. And if you want to be involved in our community coalition, you can also visit cpydcoalition.org. You have a voice as a parent here in Illinois, and we have meetings every other month. We're always looking for parents to help us share stories about what's going on in our community and how we can reach out to more families. We also have some upcoming webinars on October 14. We're going to be focusing on bullying prevention. And then every second Wednesday of a month, we're going to have different topics. We're going to continue with a scoop of advice theme. So you're still going to get discounts for ice cream. And then in the winter, what we're going to be doing is changing that focus of ice cream to topping off some recipes like pumpkin pie, scoop it with a scoop of ice cream recipe, and then also some brownies in December. So please join us for the following months, and we'll be happy to see you guys again. I would also like to thank our local ice cream shop, La Michoacana, here in Schaumburg. Thanks to their willing to give it a discount to our families and motivate them to take the webinar. If you haven't gone, they have awesome tortillas too. And all of their ice cream is very good. So please visit them. And again, if you didn't receive the coupon, reach out to me and I can send that over today. And that's it. I'm open for any questions. My contact information is there. If you do come up with other questions, even after you leave the webinar, feel free to email me, take a picture of the screen. And I hope you found this webinar helpful. And I also hope that you can join in future webinars.